By a show of hands, how many of you have ever heard of the term quarter-life crisis? Okay, keep your hand raised if maybe you're going through a quarter-life crisis right now. Okay, or if you're over 30 like I am, maybe more like a third-life crisis or a midlife crisis. Okay, my mom is 67. She thinks she's having a quarter-life crisis. So if you had your hand raised or know someone that did, you are not alone. Let me repeat that. You are not alone. The truth is that 70% of Americans and 80% of people globally are disengaged with their jobs. 80%. 1/5 of those people are so disengaged, they're actively undermining their coworkers' work. They're literally getting paid by the company they work for to screw things up for that company. Now, I think that should be a concern to those of you in the room that are managers and supervisors, because it means there are people on your team that shouldn't be there. But I actually think it should be a concern to everyone, because it means that millions of people are waking up every day unhappy, unfulfilled, sometimes depressed, not showing up fully for themselves, for their families, for their communities, or the world at large. Think about the positive impact those people could be having if they were actually doing something they cared about, if they were actually doing meaningful work. Now, this statistic means a lot to me because a few years ago, I was one of those 70%. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, working a job for the U.S. federal government. On paper, everything was perfect. I had a great job. I had a good salary. I had health care. I had benefits. I had job security. You literally cannot get fired from working for the United States federal government. Trust me, maybe there are a few people who probably should, right? And I go to happy hour every night and tell everyone, I'm the special assistant to the director of global operations at the U.S. Peace Corps. They're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Let me get your business card. My boss was impressed. My friends were impressed. My parents were impressed. Everything was perfect about my job, except for one tiny, pretty important thing. I was miserable. How did I know I was miserable? Every single morning when my alarm clock would go off at 6 in the morning, I'd feel a shooting pain go up and down my back. I felt it when I got out of bed, when I brushed my teeth, when I put on my suit and tie, when I left the house, when I took the bus to work, when I scanned my ID badge in at the office, when I rode the elevator up to the 8th floor, when I was sitting at my desk typing memos and talking points, when we were in meetings talking about best practices, when my boss would email me every single night on my BlackBerry at 10 p.m., we used Blackberries back then, and again at 4 in the morning. The pain was so bad it actually turned into shingles on my side. Shingles is gross. Shingles is a nerve disease often related to stress that's common among people over the age of 70, not 20-somethings. And I was spending a lot of time in this period, like many young people, on Facebook and Instagram, worried about fear of missing out, worried about what my friends were doing, right? Comparing myself to my friends. There was my friend going to business school, and I was like, maybe I should go to business school. There was a friend becoming a teacher. Maybe I should become a teacher. There was a friend, she was opening her own food truck, and I was like, yeah, I should open up a food truck, even though I'm a pretty bad chef and like the world's worst driver. Like, never get in a car with me. It's a bad idea. And I saw a photo of a buddy of mine. We had gone to college together. He'd already graduated from one of the top law schools in the country, got the job at this amazing corporate law firm, was making well over 6 figures, living in a penthouse apartment in New York City. And I saw a photo of him on Facebook, and he's traveling with his girlfriend in Peru, and he's proposing at sunset in front of Machu Picchu. And I'm like, man, like, this guy has got it all figured out. He's got this amazing job. He's making all this money. He's married. Like, I hate my job. I hate my life. Like, I can't even get a date on OkCupid or Tinder. Like, my life is ruined. I'm a goner. I'm never going to make it. And it was actually only when I got off Facebook and met other young people going through the exact same thing I was that I was able to flip this quarter-life crisis into a breakthrough and find meaningful work. So tonight, I'm just going to talk about a few lessons I learned on my journey that can help you think about how to find meaningful work now and always, right? This isn't just something you're going to do once. It's something that you're going to take with you for your entire career. The first lesson I learned is that you have to surround yourself with believers. You have to find people that believe in the beauty of your dreams. Because when I was back in D.C., I used to come home every night to my roommate, Dan. And I'd be like, Dan, I don't like my job. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work for the federal government anymore. I want to move to California. I want to become a writer. I want to start supporting young people and social entrepreneurs that are going after their dreams. And Dan would kind of look at me roll his eyes, take a swig of beer, take another swig of beer, and say, Smiley, suck it up, man. Everyone hates their job. It's part of life. And I was like, suck it up. Like, I was 28 at the time, which is like old, but not like that old, right? I really didn't want to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life depressed. But the truth is the majority of the world thinks like Dan, right? That's why 80% of people globally are disengaged with their jobs, because 80% of people are like, you know what? You're not supposed to like it. It's your job. You do it. You get paid. After, go have a beer. You go to happy hour. You get the weekend, and you do it again on Monday. Well, then I met believers. I went to a program called the Starting Block Institute for Social Innovation. It brings together young people that are interested in using business for good, that are interested in social change. And at Starting Block, I met believers. I met people like Debbie. Debbie was starting Goldie Blocks, which is a toy company that teaches young girls to become engineers. I met people like Ted. Ted started Money Think, which is a nonprofit in Chicago that teaches financial literacy and entrepreneurship to urban youth. I met people like Tom. Tom started Rising Tide Car Wash, which is a small business, a small for-profit business in Florida that employs people with autism. So I met people like Debbie and Ted and Tom, and they were like, wait a second, Smiley, wait a second. Like, you want to move across the country? You want to move to California? You want to become an author? You want to start supporting entrepreneurs? You have to do that. If you don't do that, who the hell's going to do that? Because the crazy thing happens when you find believers, you also find accountability. Normally, you tell someone you're going to quit your job, and they're like, yeah, you said that last week. You're never going to do it. I'll see you at happy hour on Friday. You tell someone you're going to write a book, and they're like, everyone's writing a book. You're not going to do it. You tell someone you're going to start a business or do a crowdfunding campaign. They're like, yeah, everyone's starting a business, blah, 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 entrepreneurship. See you next week. You're not going to do it. Not when you tell believers, right? Because I told my friend Evan at that program that I was going to quit my job, move to California, and become an author, and he asked me one simple question. When? When are you going to have the talk with your boss? And this dude texted me every single week after that program. Smiley, have you had the talk with your boss yet? Have you had the talk with your boss yet? Have you had the talk with your boss yet? I'd be in meetings with senior government officials at the White House getting calls and texts from Evan, like, Smiley, did you have that talk? Did you have the talk? I was like, you got to stop calling me. Like, the Secret Service is going to come after me. Like, but you know what? The only reason I did end up having that talk, quitting my job, moving 3,000 miles across the country, starting a brand new career path at the age of 30. The only reason I didn't end up writing now 3 books, and now that I'm speaking on stage with all of you here tonight, is because people like Evan held me accountable. Because when you find believers, you find accountability. Now, people like Debbie and Ted and Tom, they were not talking about making lots of money. They were not talking about rising up the corporate ladder. They were not talking about getting featured in the media or Fast Company or all these websites, Forbes, whatever. No. They were actually talking about how to make the world more innovative, more compassionate, more sustainable. They were talking about how they could empower others less fortunate than them. So no matter how much we hear about millennials, they're just the entitled generation, the lazy generation, the me generation, the selfie generation. I think that last one is actually quite true. Millennials take a lot of selfies. But I actually think that most of those stereotypes could not be further from the truth. The truth is that millennials would take a pay cut to find work that matches their values. They turn down money. Doesn't mean they don't want any money, but they would turn down money to do work they actually care about. According to Deloitte, 75% of millennials think the business world is getting it wrong, that businesses are too focused on their own agenda, profit, and not focused enough on improving society. So this is a generation that wants to work with purpose. Okay, Smiley, so we want meaningful work. Everyone wants meaningful work. What does that mean? Well, the next lesson I learned is that you have to stop comparing yourself to others and start pursuing what's meaningful to you. Because I went back and I interviewed my friend, the baller corporate lawyer. Remember him? I was like, man, you got this sweet job. You're making all this money. You got a sweet penthouse apartment in New York City. You're married. Like, what's your secret? What am I doing wrong? And you know what he told me? After 3 years of law school, landing a job at one of the top corporate law firms in the world, making that sweet, sweet money, he was miserable in his job as a corporate lawyer. He was happily married, but he was miserable in his job as a corporate lawyer, and that he was going to go back to graduate school at the age of 30 to become a high school social studies teacher, a history teacher, which is great for him, but what's the lesson there? The grass is always greener, right? Stop comparing yourself to others. We think everyone has it figured out because their Facebook, their Snapchat, their Twitter, everything looks so good. Instagram, it's all beautiful, right? Everyone's sharing their highlight reels. Stop comparing yourself to others. Start figuring out why you're here. Not your friends on social media, not your parents, not your coworkers, not your boss. Why are you here? What do you care about? And I came across this amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning. Has anyone read this book? I highly recommend it. It's one of the best books ever written. It's also one of the best-selling books ever written by a man named Viktor Frankl. Who is Viktor Frankl? He was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He was a psychiatrist from Austria. He survived living in a Nazi concentration camp during pretty much everyone around him was being killed, including his own friends, including his own family, including his wife who was pregnant. And he writes this book about what allowed people to go on in the face of almost certain death. If you weren't going to die next week, you would die in 2 weeks, you would die in a month, you were going to die. And he writes in this book that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is. So that meaning comes not from what we've been taught by society, accumulating wealth and status and power, no, but from giving it away. From love, from service, from compassion. And I don't think this means that we're all going to go work in the developing world or go work for a church or a nonprofit. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying it is that we have to approach our careers, the work we do, the people we employ, the people we work with every day from a point of service, from allowing each other to share our gifts with the world, the products that we build, allowing others, empowering others to share their gifts. That's what this is about. And so the framework, when I started interviewing hundreds of millennials about what is meaningful work to you, right? It's something that's pretty hard to define something like meaning, happiness, fulfillment, right? These are abstract concepts. But similar themes kept coming up for everyone when they said, yes, my work is meaningful. Meaningful work reflects who you are. Again, not your friends on social media, not your coworkers, who you are, what your interests are, allows you to share your gifts to help others, provides a community of believers inside and outside the workplace that will support your dreams, and is financially viable given your desired lifestyle. This last piece is incredibly important. We're talking about how to find meaningful work, not how to find meaningful vacation, right? It has to support you. So for those of you that are more visual learners, I think this is about alignment. How can you find alignment in the work you're doing, the company you work for, your day-to-day responsibilities? It's not perfection. I didn't use the word perfection. Alignment. So you're getting closer and closer where you feel this on a recurring basis. Again, not every day. You're not going to love every person you work with, right? There's not going to be every project you do is not going to be perfect, but you're getting closer to the place where you can share your unique gifts, have the impact you want to have, surround yourself with the right type of people, and live your desired quality of life. Now, the cool thing about alignment is if we were all to fill out this diagram right now, we'd have like 200 completely different diagrams, 200 completely different definitions of alignment because we're all very different. I imagine some of you are really good, have a lot of visual skills and can draw and can design. Some of you are good with numbers and math and accounting. Some of you are great event planners and communicators and marketers, right? Some of you are great speakers and writers. Some of you are great with engineers and coders and developers. Now, Debbie, she started Goldie Blocks, the toy company that teaches young girls to become engineers because of the discrimination that she faced when she was one of the only female engineering students at Stanford University. Ted started MoneyThink in Chicago because he realized he had all these opportunities in Chicago that his friends did not have. Tom started Rising Tide Car Wash because he saw how difficult it was for his own brother to get a job because his own brother has autism. So they had a deeply, deeply personal connection to their work because meaning is personal. And if you think about employee engagement, there's 4 key areas you want to focus on. This is from research from Harvard Business Review and one of the leading employee engagement consulting firms. This is not just for millennials. This is for everyone in the workplace. They found that there are 4 key areas. Purpose. Employees who derive meaning from their work are 150% more engaged and 1.3 times as likely to stay with their organization. So if you truly know why you're doing what you're doing, why you're waking up on Monday, why you're showing up at your desk or being on your computer, employees who feel valued by their supervisor are 70% more engaged. Employees who feel like their boss truly knows who they are, right? Knows if they were out sick, knows if something's going on in their life or they're having an issue at home or something isn't right. A boss, a supervisor that truly, truly values and sees their people and wants the best for them and wants their people to grow. Renewal. Employees who take a break every 90 minutes report a 30% higher level of focus. That is to say, employees who leave the office every 90 minutes, go outside, have a cup of coffee, meditate, call their mom, just sit there, whatever. When they come back, they do better work. Focus. It is incredibly difficult for people, especially young people, but frankly for everyone right now to focus. Right? Only 20% of the people in the survey said they could focus on one task at a time at work, but those who could were 50% more engaged. So how can you create incentives for yourself in the sea of distraction that we have to focus on one task at a time? So only 12% of Gen Zers, that's folks born after 1997, folks that are just joining the workforce now, and 30% of millennials expect to stay in their job longer than 5 years. This is global data from Deloitte's most recent millennial survey. That's not that many, right? And 65% of today's kids that are in elementary school will end up in jobs that haven't been invented yet. Will end up in jobs that if we were to know the job title right now, we'd be like, I have no idea what that is, right? Which makes sense because about 15 years ago when I graduated college, Facebook wasn't even a thing. It was just being invented in a dorm room. And think about all of the jobs that exist today in social media and data and analytics that weren't around just 5, 10, 15 years ago. So how are we preparing ourselves and each other and our coworkers and our organizations for an increasingly uncertain, flexible world and work environment? So I think we need to change the career model that we've always had, which is, if you know the metaphor, the career ladder, right? You get on the ladder, maybe in high school or university and college, you pick a major, you pick your specification. When you're 18 years old, you don't even know who you are. You don't even know what's going on in the world, and you're somehow supposed to know what you're supposed to do with your whole life. And then you keep moving up. You take an entry-level job, and you get a little promoted, and you move all the way up. And at some point, you're 65, you retire, you play golf, it's all good, right? That doesn't exist anymore. Right? Technology is changing so quickly, remote workforce, global workforce, that's just not how it's going to go for most people, right? It's completely uncertain now. So I think we need a much more flexible mindset. I call it the lily pad career mindset. If you think about it, the pond of lily pads, each one represents an opportunity they're spread out in all directions, right? And you can hop in different directions based on what's meaningful to you, what you care about. So you can be here like me at the age of 28, want to leave government, and you're not going all the way to the bottom to become an author and live in San Francisco. You're taking everything you've learned, all the roots, all the lily pads, what you care about, what's meaningful to you, you're taking it to a new opportunity. Now, some people will look at this slide and say, oh, this guy Smiley is telling everyone to quit their job every 2 days. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think that's actually really bad advice. It's a good way to piss off your employer, to be broke, to be unemployed. Millennial turnover costs companies billions of dollars a year. Turnover and retention is one of the highest costs that organizations face. But I am saying that 1/4 of this slide, like 20 lily pads, might be your time at one company. Your job might look like 20 different things at one company so that you're constantly growing, trying new things, learning new skills. You have a specific job, right, at your organization, but maybe you take a coding class, a design thinking workshop, you go to a career night like this, you buy a book, you start a employee resource group, you start a Tuesday night meetup for your coworkers, you go to some other event, so that every day you're different. Day 5 is different than day 10, different than day 200. You're constantly growing, you're constantly getting to experiment and learn who you are and how you want to show up. So 3 key areas to think about in building a purpose-driven career. Finding alignment. How can you make the impact that you really want to make? How can you always create value, right? I think the way to create value is always to keep learning. As millennials, we often come in and we say, oh, I want to change my, I want to raise, right? I want to change my job title. It's like, it's your 3rd day. Like, you're not getting a raise, right? Add value first, and then you can talk about all the good things that are going to happen from that. How can you always be experimenting, always be reinventing yourself, right? Always be challenging yourself to try new things, to learn new skills. Those are the people that are going to succeed in the future of work in an uncertain job market. So I like to say that HR is the new life coach. HR is a very exciting place to be. Does anyone work in HR? A couple people. So usually we think of HR as a pretty boring place. You go to HR to fill out your paperwork. Like, oh, I got to go to HR, right? Like, you go to HR on, like, the first day of work, the last day of work, and if, like, you break the law. Like, you don't really want to go to HR. Think about the depictions of HR in TV and the media, like the TV show The Office. Like, oh, I got to go see Toby in HR. Like, kill me now, Toby. It's the worst, right? Now I actually think HR is the exciting place. It's a cool place. These are the cool kids. These are the people that know who their people are. They're the people. Remember, organizations are made up of who? People, right? We're managing people. It's not about numbers. It's not about salary lines and an Excel sheet that says everyone did their job, we're productive. It's people, right? These are the people that know their employees' passions, their dreams, their purpose, where they want to be in a few years, where they want to be in 5 years and 10 years, where they want to be when they leave the company. Yes, we need to be realistic. Young people are only going to spend 2 to 3, 4, maybe 5 years at most at your organization, right? The average millennial will have 15 or 20 different jobs in their lifetime. So let's be realistic about the fact that people are going to use an experience, add value, not quit after 2 days, but maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 4 years, maybe it's 6 years, and then move on to something else, and let's help them find that next opportunity, because maybe they come back in 2 years to work for us. They're even better at their job. Maybe they recommend their best friend for the role. Their friend's even better than they were, and they keep supporting your product, keep supporting your company, right, as a customer. So let's create that kind of ecosystem of talent. Have a stay interview instead of just complaining on your last day. Here's everything that sucks about working for this place, right? And then the employer, your boss or the employer might be like, hey, if you had told me this 6 months ago, we could have made some changes. Why are you just telling me now? Let's invest in soft skills. Deloitte found that what young people are really lacking are some of the more basic soft skills, like interpersonal skills, how to have a face-to-face conversation, how to look up from our phone and actually connect, how to have a meeting where we're actually talking to each other, not looking at our phones and our computers at the same time. It's like, why'd you call the meeting? There's 10 people in this room and we're all looking at the phone, right? Let's talk about soft skills. Fostering in-person connection, I think, becomes really, really important as we advance into this increasingly unknown, kind of scary technological world. I'm going to end with a quick story here. So a few years ago, I was back where I live now in San Francisco. Remember, I made the move, and I was biking home, minding my own business, trying to get some tacos. Biking along one night. Remember, I don't drive, or I do drive sometimes, but bad idea. Biking along, this guy bikes alongside me, and he says, "My name's Bernat. I'm from Spain." I was like, I don't really know who the hell you are. Like, stop talking to me. Try to bike away. Keeps biking alongside me. "My name's Bernat. I'm from Spain. I'm looking for a job here in San Francisco." I was like, stop talking to me. Who are you? "My name's Bernat. I'm from Spain. I'm from Barcelona. I'm a UX UI designer, user experience designer. I'm looking for a job here in the Bay Area. There's no jobs in Spain right now. A lot of unemployment." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Barcelona is a beautiful city. I visited once. My best friend used to live there." And he goes, "Yeah, it is a beautiful city. I love it." He goes, "What are you working on?" And I tell him, "Oh, I'm writing this book about millennials. They're lost. They're trying to figure out what to do with their lives. I'm trying to help them find purpose and meaning in their careers." And he asks me, "Oh, well, do you have a cover designer yet?" I was like, "No." He says, "Go home, check out my website. Maybe we can work together." So I go home, I check out this crazy guy, Bernat's website. I was like, man, this guy's a really good designer. He had all these samples of his UX UI work, some CGI, some animation. So I post on Facebook, "Just met this crazy weirdo Bernat tonight when I was biking home to get some tacos. He hails from Spain, from Barcelona. He's a designer. He's looking for a job here in the Bay Area. If you know of anything, let him know." About 5 minutes later, my buddy Yi, he comments on the Facebook thread, "Oh, Bernat should talk to my friend Mark. They're doing a mobile startup in Palo Alto. There's 5 of them. They don't have a lead designer yet. Maybe they can work together." A couple of weeks later, Bernat meets with the team. He gets hired to be the lead designer for this tiny startup, this tiny mobile startup in Palo Alto. He gets a work visa to stay in the United States, which is a very big deal. A lot of unemployment in Spain. He couldn't get a job back there. He sends me a quick thank you note. And a couple of years go by. I really don't hear from the guy. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a text message from Bernat. "Smiley, I'm taking you out to dinner anywhere you want to go." I was like, sweet. I'd love to get taken out to dinner. I was writing a book then. I was broke. We go out to this fancy restaurant, get a bottle of wine. I'm like, what's going on, man? Like, why are you taking me out to dinner? Turns out the mobile startup he had been working for had just been acquired by Yahoo for $80 million. He was the 5th employee at the company. He had equity. He was getting paid in equity. He definitely could afford to take me out to dinner. And he goes, "Smiley, like, thank you, man. Thank you. This wouldn't have happened if not for you." And I said to Bernat, "Nah, man, thank you," right? Because this guy talked to a stranger in a random city in a country he wasn't from on a bicycle. Like, who the hell does that? So I think what I'm getting at is that if you want to find meaningful work today, tomorrow, in a few years, in the future, you have to constantly push yourself, get outside your comfort zone, and make those asks. And we have to create a culture in our organizations where people feel empowered to make those big, bold, crazy, ridiculous asks. We're not going to say yes to all of them, right? Every time you stop a stranger right now on the street, they might not be able to give you a job, but we have to create that environment where people feel empowered to do so. So I truly believe that we're not the me, me, me generation, that we're the purpose generation, and that we'll be engaged with our work because we have to. I think the challenges facing all of us in this room are simply too serious to ignore, too serious to only worry about after 5 p.m. or only on the weekends. So we cannot be stuck in some quarter-life crisis, third-life crisis, midlife crisis, end-of-life crisis, because the stakes are just too high. Thank you all so much.
Hi, I'm Zhenya, and I wonder if a meaningful work, a destination, or you still question and doubt the meaning of what you do right now as an author, as a writer, and as a public speaker?
Yeah, so I think that a common misconception people have, especially when they're having a quarter-life crisis or feeling stuck in their career, is that you're going to read a book or go work with a coach or have a coffee interview and that someone's going to solve all your problems and then the next thing you do is going to be perfect. And suddenly, you were in a quarter-life crisis and then you solved everything and the rest of your life is perfect. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. So I'm much happier doing what I'm doing. I love living in the Bay Area. I love writing books. I love getting to speak. But that doesn't mean there's not challenges, right? And that doesn't mean I don't have to constantly grow and adapt and try new things and question whether I'm, truly fulfilled. So I feel like I'm pursuing something that's purposeful to me. I feel like my work is meaningful. And I'm always trying to bring in new pieces, and when things aren't working, I iterate and I try new things. And I think that that's the point, right? A lot of people will look at, oh, you're successful, you're an influencer, you're an author, you have all these followers or all of these things, or someone has a cool job at whatever company and blah, 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 and you think it looks much prettier. And I guarantee you that person's also like, yeah, it was good, but I have to work on this now, or I'm trying this new thing, or here's ways I'm exploring. The second you say that everything's perfect is the second you stop having meaningful work, I think is a thing, So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
So I am struggling to find that elusive balance between working the day job and pursuing the dream job. And I understand that if you want to be producing creative work, you have to be equally creative in making the time to pursue that goal. Do you think there's ever a time limit to just saying, enough, I'm going to go all in on the dream job, even if it's dangerous? And if so, when is that deadline?
I think that's a great question. I like to say that there's no one answer for how to do this, right? Sometimes people will say that one day they'll just be at work, that's it. They throw up the table, they knock their computer over and go into their boss's office and start throwing Post-its everywhere and whatever. And they're like, I'm out of here. Or maybe someone works there another year or two to save up money while writing their book at night, while composing, the most amazing soundtrack at night, or making a documentary, or doing their startup on the side. There's not one answer, right? And I think that it's really important. And also in many jobs, we can learn the valuable skills and make the connections that are going to help you do your next thing. That's a real strategic way of doing it, because you're getting a paycheck and also working on your thing on the side. That's what really smart people do. So there's not one answer. I think it depends on the context, what you want to do. And there comes a point that if you truly, I don't mean just on a whim, but you truly have been thinking about something is bubbling up inside of you, you feel it somatically, physically in you, that if you don't do it, who the hell's going to do it? And the book's not going to write itself, the company's not going to build itself, the product's not going to design itself. It deserves more than 2 hours a week. And I think that we have to know our own hearts, our own guts, to know when that is. There's not one answer for everyone, but for me, it was that physical pain. It was having shingles. It was literally a warning sign on my body that also had been building with having some sleepless nights and sweats and panic attacks. When it starts to become physical pain, that's a pretty good sign that something's not going right.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Cheers.
Hi, my name is Fanny. I just started working at a small company. I want to develop my skills and learn as much as I can. What do you think, which are the most important skills that I should focus on, even for jobs that does not exist yet?
I think going back to that slide that I briefly showed around soft skills, I think is huge. People often focus on, oh, we have to be really fluent in digital technology and artificial intelligence and data and analytics. Actually, a lot of the research shows that what people are lacking in their careers right now is the soft skills, interpersonal skills, innovation, creativity, critical thinking. We were talking about improv and communication skills, people skills, which makes full sense when you think about the big picture of where the world is headed right now. We're putting all of this time and energy in machine learning, and the machines are taking over, and artificial intelligence, and let's design everything to take away humans. Well, we still got to do something, right? And we're still talking to each other every day, and as of now, most of us are still going to work with people every day. We need to know how to do those things and do them well, right? So if you can if you know how to get in front of a room of people, or get with a room of people, or go into a meeting and make others more creative and bring out their best ideas, you will always have a job. Right? If you're a manager and you know how to motivate people, which is not a simple thing to do, you will always have a job. If you know how to make others feel safe, and if you're a leader and you know how to make others feel safe and welcome and feel like they belong, you will always have a job. Yeah.
I've always struggled asking my boss for a raise, even though I think that I deserve it. And do you have any insights on how to know the time is right and how to be more confident about it?
Yeah, so the third day is not the right time. The third week is probably not the right time. And the third month is probably not the right time. This is a common problem that many young people kind of, oh, I just started. I think I know how to change everything about this place, right? I think it's about adding value first. So I say add value first before asking for favors. So you have to get to a point when you can point to bullet points. Here are the things I produce. Here's the growth that that has resulted from my work. Here are the people I hired. Here are the projects I worked on, and why they were amazing and how they were different from before, right? So when you can point to 3, 4, 5, 6 things, which takes time. I don't think there's one answer of the time it has to be. It has to be the amount of work and kind of the value that you've provided. I also don't think you don't have to only ask for a raise when you're working 12 hours a day. It's not necessarily about that. If you're doing great work, you should be doing great work in the amount of time that's asked of you, but it's about the value you're providing. Say, here's what I learned. Here's the value I added to this company.
Big round of applause for Adam.
Thank you.